It's time to cook with Susan Beck. I'm here on a beautiful spring day in my asparagus patch, and I have been waiting for this day since last fall when I began this cooking channel on YouTube. I love asparagus, and spring is the time to eat it, and my patch is ready to be cut today. So I am going to show you 3 different ways to make asparagus. If you're not sure that you really like asparagus, I hope you'll watch a little more of this video because I'm going to try to convince you to give it a try again. Now this asparagus bed was planted about 20 years ago. My husband and I put asparagus in right after we moved here. And we began this process, which is kind of an adventure in itself, with an 18-inch deep trench, and we put the asparagus plants in the bottom of that, and we covered them. And every time the tip of the asparagus would peek out, we would then cover it with dirt. And it would peek out again, and we'd cover it with more dirt each time until we were level with the ground. Cutting off these spears. This one here is about 12 inches tall. Recommended height might be a little bit more like 7 inches tall, but they'll be okay even if they do get a little taller. When I cut these, I am going to put my knife down in the ground. Let's pull some of these weeds so you can see that better. Underneath the soil. A nice sharp knife is very helpful for this so that you can cut off that stalk. Now I'm going to finish cutting all these up, but I want to mention that when we first planted these, it's a little bit of an exercise in patience. You really can't be eating your asparagus the first year and very, very little the second year because your roots need to be really well established before you start cutting this all the time. Asparagus is also something that you only eat in May and early June. If you keep harvesting it all summer, again, you're not allowing those roots to establish and you're not going to get as good a crop the following year. Now this next step I would normally do in the house, and that is washing my asparagus. Because I cut it below the ground, you will see there's quite a bit of dirt on the bottom of these. So cleaning it off is a very important part, especially the bottoms. So I've just got a little bin of water here that I am going to clean off my asparagus in. The next thing is storage. If I'm going to eat this today, then I am all set to go and I don't need to do anything else except to leave it lay on the counter until supper time when I'm ready to cook it. But because I'm not going to cook this right this minute, I will show you how to store it in the fridge. You would want to take a container and fill it with a couple inches of water. And the best way to store your asparagus is by standing it on end. So I am going to put all of my now washed asparagus into this container. Now you'll have to probably move a shelf around or two in your fridge possibly in order to get this to stand since these spears are kind of hot, but it's worth it for good asparagus, fresh from the garden. And just so you know, you don't have to start your own asparagus bed. You can just buy your asparagus in the produce section of your grocery store or your local farmer's market. You know, asparagus is kind of a funny thing for me. This is a vegetable I never grew up eating. I was just an Iowa farm girl, and the only thing we really had on the table with our meat and potatoes was corn, peas, green beans, carrots, and once in a while the dreaded lima beans. Ugh, always hated those. When I met my husband, he started introducing me to a lot of different vegetables like beets and rutabaga and Brussels sprouts, and asparagus is now my favorite. I have here that asparagus that we picked earlier today. We are ready to turn it into 3 different types of asparagus. No matter what kind of asparagus you're going to cook, one important thing is to look for the natural bend in your asparagus stalk. Your asparagus will snap at that point. I think one of the reasons many people think they don't like asparagus is because they don't take the time or they don't know that they should break off the end of the asparagus. This is that woody, hard to chew, kind of like, you know, a celery type of grain. To steam asparagus on the top of the stove, I have my pan filled with some water. It's about an inch deep, maybe not even quite an inch deep. And I am going to use this steamer. They come in metal ones that kind of collapse in, and these silicone ones. This is also a recipe that if you have a rice cooker, you could do it in the top of your rice cooker, which has a steaming pot on the top. If you're interested in doing this in a rice cooker, just look at my how to cook vegetables in a rice cooker video that I will link below. Alright, so I am going to put about a third of the asparagus that we picked today into this steaming pot, just because I want to be able to make this in a variety of methods for you today. So I just have a handful in here today, and this is going to go onto the top of my stove with a lid on. I'm going to put it on high, and I am going to bring it to a boil. Once it gets to a good boil, I can turn that temperature back and just let it cook away. One of the advantages of using this steamer is to keep the water and the asparagus separated. I don't want to lose as many nutrients, and this is a method that helps with that. So, over to my stove goes my asparagus, setting that on high. I can hear the water boiling, so I know the steam is starting to rise on my asparagus. It also means it's time to turn this down from high to, I'm going to go to medium-low. Alright, put the lid back on, and that'll take another maybe 5 minutes. A total of 10 minutes to steam our asparagus. The next asparagus recipe that I'm going to use is a roasted recipe, and I'm going to roast that with some olive oil, some salt, and some Parmesan cheese. I really like to line my tray with a piece of parchment paper because that makes for very, very easy cleanup. So I'm going to take the next third of my broccoli spears here and put them on my pan, and I will simply drizzle them with olive oil. I will sprinkle a little salt on the top. That, of course, is optional. If you'd rather have garlic powder or some other seasoning, feel free to substitute that. And I usually just use the canister of Parmesan cheese that you would use on your pizza or spaghetti. Fresh would work as well. I kind of like this because it just kind of sticks better to my asparagus. All right, now that all three ingredients are on the asparagus, I'm just going to roll that around to coat my asparagus. Let's see if we can give you a better look of each of those spears coated with olive oil and Parmesan and a little bit of salt. This is going to go into my oven, which I had preheating, meaning it's already up to temperature and warm, at 425 degrees. I'm just going to put it in the middle of the oven. The asparagus will roast in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes until it is at a tender, crisp stage. I will toss that and roll it over after about half of the cooking time. Oh, doesn't that roasted asparagus look delicious? Our final asparagus recipe is for our grilled asparagus. We are going to grill that in little bundles. I've already finished snapping the ends off of these, and I am going to be taking a piece of bacon and wrapping it around the asparagus, just like that. I will then be putting them onto a copper grilling sheet. A copper grilling sheet was a gift from my dad a while ago because he was going to test one out, and they came in packages of 2. So he gave me the other one, and I absolutely love it. It doesn't look so copperish anymore because I have used it over and over and over again. I like to lay my copper sheet on top of a cookie sheet that doesn't have any sides, and then I can just slide this onto the grill, as I'll show you in a little bit, to easily move it on and off of my hot grill. My grill is already outside on high, getting very warm, but we will turn that down to a medium, maybe like a 350 degree grill if you have a thermometer on yours. All right, I'm gonna set those onto this cookie sheet. Do one more bundle here. We'll have a bundle for everybody in the family tonight to eat. I am just going to use some toothpicks to try to hold that bacon in place just a little bit better than it is at the moment. So I'm just going to stick a couple toothpicks in there and hold these in their spots. Let's get a couple more toothpicks out. 1 or 2 in each one should do the job just fine so that we don't lose all the bacon. In this case, I lost a piece of asparagus out of there, but I think we can tuck it right back inside. Okay, a little olive oil on those also, and I'm just going to kind of roll them around in that. I just like a little olive oil to keep them from sticking, although that's another plus of the copper pan is that they really do not stick. All right, it's time to take these out to the grill. While heating up my grill, I had all the burners set on high, but I am going to make an adjustment to that. I'm going to slide my asparagus bundles right off my cookie sheet and onto the grill, and I am going to turn my middle burner off and my front and back burner down to medium, so it's a little more indirect heat. The asparagus bundles are looking great. I like to just rotate them now and then so that my bacon cooks evenly. Just do a few rotations throughout the cooking time. Probably about 15 to 20 minutes to finish these in total. Oh, doesn't that look delicious? And one of the easiest and best ways to tell if you are ready to take it in and eat it is by the doneness of the bacon. It's time to taste these different types of asparagus. We'll start with that steamed asparagus. It's that tender crisp where my fork definitely stabs into it, but it's still got a little bit of a crispness when I go to take a bite of it. Those roasted ones. That drizzle of olive oil just gives it a nice homey feel. And I just love that Parmesan cheese on there. And the last one, I think I might use my knife. Easiest way to eat this one is to try to catch your bacon and your asparagus so you get a little bit in every nibble. And you can just tell that was cooked on the grill. And that bacon just cooked up perfectly. And I don't know, it's hard to decide which way is my favorite. Give them all a try. So I am going to be cutting this asparagus that's, maybe like 7 inches.
Let's go.
The gnats are terrible. A little drizzle of the olive oil as well.